Hello, everyone. It's Caleb.
And Anthony?
We are
The Rivals.
So, for today's episode, we're going to talk a little Premier League. We're going to talk a little CONCACAF under 20s. And we're going to talk a little Rowdies. Right?
I think that sounds like a plan. Those three things should keep us talking for a while.
Yeah, a little bit. All right, first things first. Chelsea won this weekend. Are you satisfied? Are you champions yet?
Well, I'm going to hold you off there. I have not crowned myself as a champion, and nor have I crowned the team as champions. I think we did what we needed to do this weekend, though. 3-1 win against Swansea, against a hot team. I think the commentator gave a really great stat that showed that Swansea, in actually the last 5 matches, has more points than Chelsea going into that game. They had 9. Chelsea had 8. So, I mean, for us to get a win there, I think was what we needed to do. I think it was difficult because it was against, we'll say, a hot team. And other teams in the league haven't been able to get those wins, like Liverpool.
Right.
So I think we did what we needed to do to cement ourselves to cruise control to the championship. Now, I'm not going to say we're champions yet because, I don't know. I don't want to give us the cup yet.
12 games left. You have a 10-point lead. No?
I mean, maybe Tottenham will do something special.
Maybe we will. And I do want to talk about Leicester really, really quickly before I talk about Tottenham. How do you feel about Ranieri getting sacked?
I think he was absolutely shafted. I think he brought a team that should never, ever, ever should have been champions of the Premier League to that crux, to that crucible, won it against all odds.
Literally against all odds.
Every odd in the book. And he might have been having a poor year, but they are doing fine in Champions League right now. I mean, they're not having a poor Champions League run. They're still in the competition. Other teams aren't. Tottenham. And to fire him, I think, was just insane to me. I don't think... And you see the reports that the players wanted him out. I don't know how true that was. I'm not in the locker room. I think it was unfair. I mean, the precedent is shown. Look at Mourinho. Look at other coaches. It's happened before. It'll happen again. The Premier League is...
Cutthroat?
It's ruthless, but I mean, especially them still being in Champions League, I think he deserves a spot. Because he's showing that he still can do it in the highest regard, in the highest cup there is. So
I think it's absolutely disgusting. Like, I was really, really upset that they fired him, and I really want them to get relegated now. Like, I have no pity for them. I think it's...
But my thing is, I could understand if they were in the relegation zone.
Well, they were.
Okay, they were when he was fired.
Yeah, they were when... They won yesterday, and they jumped back up out of
Okay, I see. So they are 2 points ahead of the relegation zone. Well,
but here's the thing. Listen.
I mean, if it takes only one game for them to jump out of the relegation zone, I mean, why fire him? Why bring in somebody else? All he needed to do was win one game and jump them out, and he's still in Champions League. So, I mean, you go ahead.
To me, it showed, like, what did Leicester expect? What did the ownership expect? They think they were going to repeat?
Well, no, and especially because they sold their best player.
Absolutely.
And N'Golo Kante went to... Well, I mean, he's about to be a back-to-back champion, and I don't think that's actually ever happened. Or I read something about that a player going from one team, or winning a championship, one team getting transferred to another and winning a championship is either never happened or been very rare. I don't remember off the top of my head. But I mean, continue with what you're saying.
Well, I was just saying, like you said, against all odds, you win the Premier League, and then to me, like they gain promotion to the Premier League. Everyone knew that they were going to struggle. They said it's a success for them is going to be in the Premier League.
That's actually what I was going to ask you next. Yeah. Is would 15th last year have been a success for them?
Absolutely.
So then why is it not this year for them?
Because I think they think that, well, we're the champions, we can't be here. But that's where they should have been last year. It was a fluke. You're talking about something that will never happen again. You're talking about not having a single injury the entire year and having a squad of players that played their best football of their careers at the same time for an entire season. That doesn't happen. That never happens and never will again. And to tell me, when they fired him, to me that just showed that they had unrealistic expectations of this season.
To me, it shows bad ownership, and it shows why a team can't stay up and why they probably won't now, personally, from what I think. And we're actually going to look at the total flip side of this argument in about a minute when we talk about Arsene Wenger. But, it's the Premier League, and it's cutthroat, and it's ruthless. But, he got them to that point. He deserves a little respect.
I completely agree. Because he did what not should have happened. Like, it should not have happened. And to me, you're saying to me, like, well, this isn't good enough for us. Well, yeah, it is. Fighting for relegation is what you were going to be doing last year and what you were going to be doing this year. Nobody expected you guys to be fighting for anything this season, and to fire the guy who brought you here. It's also the players, they're just not performing like they did last year. It's just not happening for them because these are not world-class players. They just happen to play really well.
And he got them to all play really well for one whole season, and that's what you ask of a coach. And it's just shameful to fire him. I think it shows bad ownership.
Yeah, I completely agree. And if I didn't hate them before and didn't want them relegated, I definitely do now. I want them to go down.
I think they've actually tainted their own story, right? Because I think if they finish 15th and he's still the coach, we all expected that, right? But now we're going to talk about how he was fired one season away, and I think it taints that Ben Rose season for them now.
I completely agree. I think I was very upset for him. But, he's a fantastic manager, and I think he's going to get another high profile. Because he managed Chelsea, for all those who were actual fans before the big money came. I don't know if you knew that. Did you know that? You must have been... You tell me you were only 5 years old or something, so I'll give you a pass.
That is truth, though. I can't...
I'll give you a pass.
It's like saying, oh, did you watch the games? Did you follow the team? I was playing with Legos. I don't know what to tell. I can only do what I can do.
Right, okay. So he was the manager of Chelsea. He managed Real Madrid. He's a good manager. He'll get another job, and he deserves it. But I was very unhappy with the way Leicester treated him. But anyway, enough of that. I do want to talk really, really quickly about Tottenham's 4-0 against Stoke. We've had a rough month. It's been up and down. It's been really up and down. Like we lost against Liverpool. We didn't just lose against Liverpool. We didn't show up against Liverpool.
Yeah.
It wasn't even anything close to the way we've been performing all season, and it was bad. It was bad. It was bad,
and it was a crucial game to pull points. A draw would have been fine. I think a draw would have been okay. A win obviously would have been better, but a loss was not something you needed at that point. Remember, we faced Liverpool about, 3 or 4 games before, and we got the draw we needed, right?
Yeah.
It's things you got to do.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And after that we played a little Europa, we played FA Cup, we played Europa again, and then finally went back to Premier League and came back big. And interesting little side note, this is the third time we play Stoke in a row where we win 4-0. So, and Mark Hughes has been talking about it's not going to happen again. It's not going to happen again. And I just wanted to be in his head when it happened again. And there were chances to make it even more, but no, it just happened to be 4-0. And that was just it.
Quattro Zero,
man. It's we like playing against Stoke. Apparently.
If you guys could play Stoke every game.
Yeah.
Or just Harry Kane, right?
Yeah.
A hat trick.
Nice. First half hat trick, and then the assist to Dele Alli. And let me just say one thing, because I know everyone, you're like, oh, he's a Tottenham fan, he must be biased. I think Dele Alli is probably the best player under the 23 years old in the league. In terms of just raw talent, it's raw. And I think he's fantastic, and I think he's going to be a superstar. He needs to get his act together. this is not the first time he lashes out in that way against, like, the way he did against Genk.
And you're referring to the
horrible,
the blatant knee
crushing. Like, he could have like snapped his tibia in half.
I mean, he was going for blood there.
He was absolutely going for blood. So, if you don't know what happened, he gets fouled. The ref didn't call it, and instead of getting on with the game, he turns around and just crushes the Genk player to the point where I'm surprised he had a leg.
And this is the first half of a game
where
you're
had
down
to win.
on aggregate. You need to win.
At that point, we were up.
You're up on aggregate.
Yes, at that point we were up.
Okay, well you were up, but going into the game,
we needed to win.
You needed to win, and you were down on aggregate going into the game, right?
We were down 1-0 on aggregate.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, a game where you needed to win to stay in the Euro, and I think Pochettino made it clear that he wanted to advance. He wanted to.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
So the players knew their goal. I mean, a lot of people always say, and I think you mentioned this before to me, is that if we lose, I kind of want to lose, right? Or I would be okay with losing.
What I said to you, and I believe these were my exact words, I never want us to lose. There's never a point where I'm like, I want Tottenham to lose. But in the grand scheme, I think not being in Europa is better for us long term in order to make that top four.
Right, to make the top four to get in the Champions League next year,
yes.
Or to pursue. I mean, you guys are not pursuing an FA Cup anymore, but
no, we are in FA Cup.
Oh, are you still in FA Cup? Okay, I thought you might have been out of FA Cup.
Negative.
That's right. You guys were down, and then came back like miraculously, right?
Yeah, it was that one. No, we were winning, and then they tied us, and then they. Who was it? It's that second division team. With that big. His name is Akinfenwa.
Oh yeah, it's Wakambe Wanderers, right? Or
Wycombe, yeah, Wycombe. So we were down against Wycombe. We ended up coming back.
Akinfenwa.
That man is not a man. He is he has to be like a fake person because he's just the biggest dude of all time. But anyway, no, we're still in the FA Cup. We beat Fulham. I think it was 3 or 4-0 to advance. But not the point. The point is, yeah, I think long term, it's better for us to be out. I didn't want us to lose, and I definitely didn't want us to lose in the way we lost because we still outplayed Genk even with only 10 players. We definitely should have beat them regardless, but you can't say that it wasn't his fault that we lost. We definitely needed him.
I mean, I think going back to what I said, Pochettino made it clear, and like we just talked about, that it wouldn't be the worst thing if you guys went out, but he made it clear he wanted to win this game. So that means the players knew, and there's no excuse.
No, and like I said, it's not his first time. It's not his second time. He's done this multiple times in the past. I forgot who it was against, and the ref didn't catch it, but of course the cameras did. He punched the guy in the stomach, and he got, after the fact, the FA banned him for 3 games, right. I think. This was last season. And, I mean, he's 20 years old, and I'm not excusing that. I'm not saying, well, he's 20 and that's why he's doing this. I'm just saying he's 20 years old. He needs to grow up. And the other things that he does, that really bothers me is he dives. He dives all the time.
I mean, this is the one thing I hate in soccer, in football, in anything. I hate diving. I mean, to me, you are the most talented players in the world. You have no reason to dive.
None.
Show your talent. Show your heart. I mean, now I understand tactical fouls. I understand things like that. But diving is, to me, the worst thing. And we've discussed this, and this is why I don't like Liga MX sometimes. It is so annoying. Sometimes I hate watching Real Madrid play Sevilla because somebody's going to dive. You're going to see Ronaldo dive. Or Barcelona, Neymar, right? Diving. Why? You are the most talented. You are the top 5 most talented player in the world. There is no reason for you to be diving. And obviously it gives the sport a bad name, but it's. Right. That's one of those things that just breaks it for me. If I watch one of my own players dive on Chelsea, on any of my teams, I lose respect.
No, and that's what I'm saying. That is one thing I will openly criticize Dele Alli about. I think he needs to not do that. I think his game will improve, I think, and the thing is, he's been in the Premier League 1.5 seasons, almost going on 2 seasons at the end of this season, and he already has a reputation of being a diver. That's how bad of a diver he is.
Well, I mean, and they know they can get in their head if they
that's also
give
true.
him a little shove or a little bump, and
yeah, because he's gonna retaliate,
Right.
and I like it. Just the things that he does. Like 1 second he'll score. I don't know. You remember that goal against Crystal Palace where he lobbed it to himself.
You think is like one of the best goals
of all
time.
I mean,
I remember you telling me this.
And then what he did against Chelsea, scoring 2 beautiful headers, and then he does something like that. Like he goes from extremes.
Nobody is questioning his talent.
I'm just saying he goes to extremes. Like he needs to clean that part of his game up, and then he can focus on being just. It's just infuriating when I see him do stuff like that. But
let me ask you a follow-up question. How much longer do you think he will stay in North London?
I think the way things are going right now.
I mean, because Tottenham has a history of selling their best players when they can make the most money. You look at Gareth Bale. You look at who else?
Luka Modric,
right?
Berbatov.
Yeah,
those are the last 3 big ones.
But those are big ones. When they get a world class player, and they know they can make money on it.
But
they do it.
Well, the thing with Berbatov is at the time we were a middling table team, and United came calling, and at that time there was nothing we could do. Things are different. If United can come calling now, I don't think.
With the Gareth Bale, they were looking to.
Now the Gareth Bale thing. I think was a little bit different because I really hated the way Madrid handled it. They teased him over. They kept calling him. He was born to be a Galactico, and they even printed out his shirt number with his name on it before the transition was even complete. And I just think he was a young kid, and they really got to him. You know, they really messed with him to the point where he had to go, or else he wasn't going to be the same player he was for us the previous season.
But precedent has shown when push comes to shove, they'll sell it and make the money. They'll cash in.
I think things are different now. Like since Pochettino took over, you can tell there's a different feel about the players.
So you think?
I think Harry Kane. I think Christian Eriksen. I think Dele Alli, Son, Hugo Lloris
are not going anywhere.
I don't think they're going anywhere, and especially not when the new stadium's on the horizon.
But see, I could almost make the counter argument, and you see teams do this all the time, when owners are forking out money, and I don't know how much money they're putting into this of their own money.
Well, that's an interesting.
Sometimes they are, their pockets are a little.
Well, and that's the thing. That's not happening because a couple of things. Number one, a couple of weeks ago, I looked at net expenditure over the last 4 seasons. And I think
on roster, or just in general.
Just in general. No, like transfers. Mm-hmm. Just in transfers. We are actually one of the few teams that have made a profit over the last few seasons in terms of transfers because we've had a lot of academy promotions. Number 2, the city of London. Well, the neighborhood. I forgot how they structure their cities, but I think it's called Harrington. Where
are they paying a big chunk of change?
They're paying for it. They're helping fund it. Number 2, or number 3, I forgot what point I'm on. I don't know if you know, they struck a huge deal with the NFL.
To host games there?
Yeah, Tottenham, games? The stadium, new White Hart Lane, whatever they're going to call it, Nike Hart Lane, or whatever.
Is that what they're thinking?
I don't know, man.
Okay, you're just making up stuff.
Amazon Arena, I don't know. It's going to host 2 NFL games every season for the next 10 years. And that was a huge
selling
money deal.
Point for the.
And finally, and additionally, the naming rights, they haven't been discussed, and I'm sure they're going to make this huge deal with somebody because it's going to be the biggest stadium in London.
Is that the trend now for Premier League team stadiums to sell the name rights though?
I don't know, but the Emirates did it.
I mean, you have the Emirates.
The
Etihad has it, but well, Stamford Bridge is going to be recycled out soon, and we're going to have a new stadium. I think that's already coming about.
Well, you look at Leicester's King Power Stadium for Leicester. You have like the Bet 365 Stadium.
You still have stadiums like St. James's Park and things like that.
But remember, they actually, the official name of St. James is not St. James anymore. They sold the rights.
Did they? Yes. I learned something new today.
Nobody calls it the official name because the fans are like, nah, screw you. It's St. James Park.
But so at what point will they not be investing in names if fans are... I mean, that's the reason they invest in the name... The naming rights is so people will call it that, so you keep saying King Power or Etihad over and over and over again.
I mean, I don't know, but I just know that those particular fans weren't having it. But I know the Etihad and the Emirates, out of the two big ones that I can think of, that sold huge naming rights. And I also know that next season we're going to a Nike kit, and Nike paid big money to be our kit. They might have changed the name back, I don't know, but I know they had changed the name at one point, St. James. You looking it up?
I am. I mean, I didn't know. I always hear St. James Park. I think it's St. James. I think of Newcastle.
Yeah, their owner. I forgot the dude's name, but not very popular at St. James. He ended up selling the naming rights, and the fans just were not happy. So
I don't see anything about it. I mean, that's something I'll have to look up later on, though, I guess. Oh, here we go. Full name, it says St. James Park. Yeah, I don't know. I
don't know. Maybe I'm thinking of a different one, but I know there was a stadium that they did sell the naming rights, and the fan base was very upset. And they kept calling it what they were calling it. Like, they're not going to change the name. It's one of the most historical parks, stadiums in the world, and stadia in the country. But anyway, so there's all that. Money is coming in, so there's no need to sell these players right now. The Tottenham, the group that owns Tottenham, doesn't need to sell players. So, and what they're building right now, I don't think the players want to go anywhere. I mean, I don't know the players. I'm not them, but I can tell you we've never had as many players sign contract extensions as we have now. And I think that has everything to do with Pochettino and the way he handles his players.
I love him as a coach. I mean, I think he's a great coach. I love that he builds through his academy. And I love that he keeps his young players there to learn in the academy.
Yeah.
I mean, Chelsea takes two different approaches. We are a colony. We colonize, right? So we have 76 players on loan.
Right.
But to them, it's a financial thing, right? We buy all these players young, we loan them out, and then we sell them later on. It's all about churning and making money. The loan system they're taking advantage of in their own way. It's intriguing, but it's a different way of doing things.
Right. Speaking of financials, let's touch on Arsene Wenger super fast.
We did talk. We highlighted that earlier that we were going to discuss that. Yeah. So we should probably go into that.
So after their demolishing at the Allianz Arena Champions League, a lot of people have been calling for Arsene Wenger's head, and they were even more adamant about it. There was even a fan group in Chile writing a petition to have Alexis Sanchez leave the club.
Which just doesn't make any sense. They're a top team in the Premier League. I mean, he's playing... Oh, I mean, where do they want him to go?
Madrid? I don't know.
Yeah.
Bayern? I don't know what they want. They just think that he's above, the club is beneath him or something. I don't know. I'm going to make the argument that it's not Arsene Wenger's fault that Arsenal have not been able to produce. And here's why I'm going to say that. Arsenal are one of the best run clubs in the country, maybe even the world. They're always churning a profit. They're the only team, if you look back at the seasons over the last 20 years, they're the only team that has consistently finished in the top four. Over the last 5 years, United have been in and out. Liverpool, in and out. Tottenham, in and out. Manchester City, in and out. Chelsea, in and out. The only team that has been a constant top four team is Arsenal. What that tells me is that they're very well run, they're very well organized. Now, we know for a fact they have the highest ticket prices in the country, right? We talked about that earlier offline.
Yeah, the supporters are making a big deal out of it because they are the highest, and soccer is a blue-collar sport for the blue-collar man, and the great thing about the Premier League is that you can go to multiple games, you can afford multiple games, and people of the blue collar class can go.
Right. But that kind of goes to my point. Arsene Wenger doesn't set the ticket prices. It's the ownership. Now, my argument is it's not Arsene Wenger's fault that they've plateaued. I think with that ownership group, no manager would succeed because they're more interested in making a profit than winning a championship. They are satisfied finishing top four every year.
I see what you're saying. You're saying they are great owners when it comes to turning a profit, when it comes to running a business.
That's it. That's what Arsenal is. Arsenal is a business.
They're the Dallas Cowboys
exactly
of the Premier League.
Yes. And that is my argument. And I think you bring in Ancelotti, you bring in Pep Guardiola, you bring in Mourinho, you bring in Pochettino. They're not going to win anything because the ownership is not interested in they have the money to compete with Chelsea and City and United in terms of spending. They refuse to do it. And Arsene Wenger, he's a company man, so he plays the role. Like, we don't need these players. We don't need them. I know he knows they need the players, but he's a company man. He's a yes man. And so the ownership is saying, we're not spending $100 million this offseason.
But so you think, because of that argument, you think he should stay?
No, I'm not saying that I think he should stay. I'm just saying it's not his fault. Whether or not he stays, I don't think is the question. I think people are wanting his head because they think he's the reason Arsenal plateau. I disagree. I think it's not his fault. I think it's the ownership's fault. And I think you bring in any manager in the world and you shoehorn them into that structure where they're more interested in making money, and no manager wins a championship for Arsenal with that ownership the way they're running the club because they're too interested in being a business.
So let me put it to you this way. Is he interchangeable then? If you throw in a Pochettino, if you throw in a Mourinho, will you have the same result? Top 4 finishes, and I think he has 3 Premier League titles. Do you think if they flip him out and they do the same thing, you'll have a similar result?
I think so. I think they'll continuously finish in the top 4, but I think that's their limit. I think that is the limit I'm not saying they couldn't win one. I mean, obviously Leicester won last season, and that could have been anyone's game. That could have been anyone's title, and I think they're always in the running, but they're never going to run away with it like Chelsea or like United did in the past. They're just not going to do that because they don't invest in the players as much as other teams do.
I'm going to flat out disagree with you.
Okay.
I think they're a well-run business. I'm not disagreeing with you on that point. I think he needs to go. I think he needs to go for several reasons, and I think he has the talent in his player pool to win, and he should. We've had this conversation. Alexis Sanchez, top 3 striker, top 4 striker, top 5
in the league.
Yeah. Mesut Ozil.
He's dropped off lately.
Top 5. What are we looking at him as? A cam, as a center mid, as a left wing, whatever he plays sometimes.
Whatever.
A creator, a distributor.
I don't think so. Personal opinion. I don't think he is a top player this season anymore.
Okay. Well, I guess we can give you that point. Let's look at the team as a whole. Petr Cech.
Petr Cech's obviously still a very good keeper.
Okay. So we're going down the line, and
I think Wenger has the problem that Ferguson had when he was managing United. And I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, but I don't think over the last maybe 5 seasons Ferguson was in charge, United was ever the most talented team in the league. I think Ferguson was just a brilliant manager that took average to above average players and won with them. And I think Wenger has the same problem. He's got average to above average players. The difference is he can't get that extra out of them that Ferguson got out of his players. Because if you look at Manchester United, their roster the last 3 seasons Ferguson was in charge, they were not good players. Like, They were above average at best. And he still won with them.
So I think what we're doing right now is we're looking at the extremes. So you're looking at Alex Ferguson, the extreme minority of coaches in the coaching realm. I'm going to turn this argument, and I want to clarify, because we live in this world now where the likes of Claudio Ranieri can get fired after winning. It's a very reaction. Bob Bradley got 6 games. I mean, how many games did he get?
Ridiculous.
It's a world where coaches really don't have the leeway to make very many mistakes. But in a binary sense, the other turnaround would be that Arsene Wenger has been given too much time and too much mediocrity. Now, people yell at me and say he has 3 titles, but how long has he been coaching?
Like 2000. Oh, he's been coaching for 20-something?
20-something years. Yeah. Would you buy 3 titles in 20 years?
You have to remember he coached at the same time the greatest of all time.
So you're saying those 3 titles are even more prominent?
I think
because
absolutely. He went up against the greatest manager in club football.
But at that time, you also don't think... So I think the league now, with all the influx of money, I think the league is at the most competitive point it's ever been.
I agree.
I think if you go back 10, 15 years, you had... Right, so we now say, what do we say now? We say the top 5, top 6 is what we typically say now.
It was definitely the big 4 back then.
It was the big 4, right? So now you have Tottenham, you have...
City. Those are the 2 new ones.
So, I mean, you have more competition now. I've talked to you about this before, but I'd like to compare him to Jim Boeheim of the Syracuse basketball team. Now, I know you don't know much about basketball, so I'll give you a little, and maybe our fans don't either. Jim Boeheim has been the Syracuse basketball coach since 1976.
That's insane.
So I think Arsene Wenger has been since 1996, so this is a little bit more stretch of a comparison, but long tenures, both of them. Jim Boeheim has an incredible win percentage. He has a 718% win percentage. He wins a lot of regular season games. How many national titles, so comparing it to the Premier League, how many titles do you think Jim Boeheim has?
I don't remember what you told me. Did you tell me 1 or 2?
1.
1. What year was that?
A long, long time ago. No, it wasn't that long ago.
But here's my question.
It was in 2002, 2003. So he has a lot of runs. I think he's been there 4 times. He's been in the championship 4 times. He has 1 title. If you said, I will give you a coach, and after 30 years or 40 years or whatever the number is, he will win 1 title. I am not disputing that he is a great coach. But if you give me 40 years to run a team, I'd take my odds to win a title.
Right.
And especially a team like Syracuse, because the Syracuse is very similar to an Arsenal. They are the pinnacle of basketball. You have Kentucky, you have Syracuse, you have Kansas,
Duke,
and North Carolina, right? So you have like a top 5 who's always there. I think they're very similar. Arsene Wenger does not have the win percentage. He has like a 518 win percentage, but that's counting in ties.
Yeah.
So the numbers a little skewed. Statistics may be misleading. He has 3 titles in a less period of time, but greater disparity in numbers like what he can spend, things like that. They've been top 14 for a very long time. But I think it's very similar cases, right? 2 coaches who have stayed way too long, way past their prime. They've gotten you very top results. They win a lot of games, but it's 2 leagues that are they're very similar. You play a lot lesser competition most of your games. I think it's time for them to move on. And trust me, I'm one of these people who think that Ranieri shouldn't have been fired. I do think Mourinho should have been fired, but I'm not a big Mourinho fan, even though he did bring us a lot of championships and a lot of cups. I don't think that's a different story for another day. I'll leave that be. I think it's Wenger's time to go. I think he has the talent, and I think he hasn't pushed them to the pinnacle.
I think he's going to go. I think this is his last season, and somebody else is going to come in, and I think he'll be vindicated because I don't think they're going to do anything. I don't think they're going to be able to... I mean, who knows? You get the new coach effect where you get a new coach and you automatically start winning games like Leicester did yesterday.
I think sometimes a new face
Helps.
helps.
I definitely agree with
Especially
that.
about a certain amount of time. And I don't think he's a bad coach. I think he'll be a great coach wherever he goes, and I think he said he wants to keep coaching.
Yeah.
I just think it's time for a fresh new face to bring in a new philosophy to work with that talent and move forward.
But what if they're not going to get the funding? They're not going to get the money to bring in the top talent in the world.
I think that's where bringing in a new coach helps, right? Because a new coach says, I need my players. And so you give him that funding immediately to get the players they want, to build the squad they want. And then maybe they say, okay, we don't like to dish out a lot of money for lots of players after he gets his players.
Mm-hmm.
So the team changes over a little bit. You sell, you move, you get players, and you bring in his team. And then that brings a new identity then for them to go forward.
Yeah.
I mean, and let me be clear. Him not being fired would not be the end of the world for Arsenal. They're still going to remain in the top 4, top 5. With him or without him. But I think for them to push into that next level, I think it's time for him to go. Just like I think it's time for Jim Boheim to go.
Yeah. I'll take your word for that one. Yeah. So, last few minutes, you want a little CONCACAF U20?
Let's talk about it.
So, this is the CONCACAF version of qualifying for the U20 World Cup. It's going to be in South Korea later this year. You've been following the U.S.?
I have.
I've been following Mexico. Obviously, we lost to you guys last night. And
you can't let him get away with that. He tries to just sneak it under there and then move on to the next
I was
subject.
gonna say, I think it's the first time this particular age group loses to your U20s in like 30 years.
30 years, I think is what the number is, yes.
So that was quite the blow.
I mean, did you watch the game?
I was unable to watch. I watched the end of it, and I noticed that we were not playing the way we had been playing. We're doing a lot of, I guess, desperation, because you guys scored in the 30th.
Yeah, we scored off a corner in the 30th from one of our best players on the team, who was actually playing at Porto, not for their first team, but in their academy.
Yeah.
I mean, I am not a big Tab Ramos fan.
Right, you've mentioned that in the past.
I think I've been clear about that, and we've had a mixed bag of results. Right, we lose to a 10-man Panama, and then we go and we beat minnows like St. Kitts or other teams like that. I think we had a really good game, and I think finally for one of the times they had a game plan and they followed it. I don't think we're creative enough as a U20 group. I don't think this U20 team is good enough. I think our U17s are better tactically and talent-wise. But I think they had a very good game. It was a historic game. And I think Mexico did not have a shot on goal all game long, which is surprising to me.
Which is surprising considering how Mexico had just demolished everyone before with a +9 goal differential.
Yeah, I don't think they had a goal scored against.
Not a single goal scored against. We have the highest goal scorer in the competition, and we had just been playing really fluid. And there had been times where definitely we didn't have. It felt like we weren't playing with direction. Like we were just. It felt like they were playing like at the park. A lot of times, and I don't think that's a good thing. It's good for the players to express themselves.
I think the U.S. did a lot to disrupt what Mexico was trying to do. Watching the game, I think our 2 center backs were phenomenal, and I think our midfield is really where we dictated the game from you guys.
But what I'm saying is, before, even when we were winning, I felt like sometimes the team didn't have a direction. They were just kind of playing.
I think do you think they were just letting their talent drive them?
Exactly, and I think. And I'll be honest with you, and I was one of the people. I thought we're gonna crush you guys.
I mean, our team, we have a pretty solid defense, but we don't have really many creative players on this U20 team.
Right.
I mean, that's every U.S. team ever that we don't have many creative players. I think this is one of those times that tactics beat talent.
Yeah. And like I said, I didn't watch the game, so I don't want to comment on, it was because of this, because of that. I don't know. I do know, like I just said, though, that there were times where we were not it didn't seem like we were following any kind of structure, and we went to Canada, and we just embarrassed them by just being better than them.
Well,
And
I mean, I can't say I did watch most of the game, and to be honest with you, I think it should have been 2-0, 3-0 U.S.
Yeah.
I think your defense, there were times when we had flat-out breakaways where we just couldn't score, and I think that goes back to our creativity thing and our clinical finishing. But, I mean, you guys did not have a chance in goal, and we had many chances on goal.
Right.
I mean, I think it... And I am not saying this U.S. team is more talented or better than that Mexico team. I think on that day, in that game, tactics beat talent.
yeah, and I mean this is not the first time I think a Mexico team goes against a U.S. team, specifically a U.S. team, and underestimates the U.S. team and ends up, like for example, the 2002 World Cup. I think that's the prime example of a team being way more talented and way more arrogant than they needed to be, and losing out. Just letting that I don't know, that pride and arrogance get too far, and then you end up losing and embarrassing yourselves in front of everyone.
Don't put too much pressure on the U-20s.
No. Right. So I think I'm not worried. I think we'll qualify.
I mean, it's a 3-team group?
It's a 3-team group. First team of each group automatically qualifies, and then the second team
goes to a playoff.
Will go to a playoff. And at this point, I think you guys are in pole position, because that was the one game you probably didn't expect to win, and now you won it. So you have El Salvador.
Is it a home and away, or is it just one game?
I think it's just the one.
So all we have to do is basically beat El Salvador, and we're through.
And you're through. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, yeah, I would say we're definitely in pole position, because at the end of the day, if you would ask me at the beginning of this, who would have went through, I would have said Mexico, because they would have just beat us. I think at the end of the day, it was going to be the winner of us two who would go through.
Well, actually, it looks like the second place team automatically qualifies as well. The first team from each group will play the final, and then the second place team qualifies automatically.
Gotcha.
So
we're learning CONCACAF U-20
well,
rules.
it's just I've told you this in the past.
I know how
I
you
hate
feel about
CONCACAF. We are a joke confederation, and for many reasons, and it's really upsetting the way we run tournaments.
I mean, there is the chatter about a combination of CONCACAF and another regional powerhouse. Do you think that would be
South America?
something we would see?
I mean, there's been talk about it, but we tried doing that a couple of years ago, and CONMEBOL was not happy with it.
I mean, why would they be? I don't see what would be the advantage for them to join.
No, there's no advantage for them to join. They don't want that. They did it because it was like, the big celebration of 100 years, but I don't think the individual federations want it. I don't think CONMEBOL wants it. It's just there's nothing for them to gain. I think they're way more happy being their own thing. And the problem with us is we've had this discussion. I don't know if we want to do this again, but I don't think there are definitely countries that could host the Gold Cup besides the U.S. Other than the fact that CONCACAF just wants to rake in the money because they'll sell more tickets here, and that's not an opinion. They'll definitely sell more tickets here.
That is an absolute fact, and we can look at what did we just have last summer that we never, that shouldn't have been here.
What did we have last summer?
We had a lot of South American teams here for their tournament.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that?
Copa America. That's what I'm saying. We just had that. That's what we were talking about.
Right, but that's not a CONCACAF tournament.
Exactly.
And the Copa America was here because they made a lot more money having it here than they did, I think it was in Chile last time, or one of those countries, and they did not make nearly... It's...
Right, but aside from the money-making thing, they don't want to have Copa America here in the U.S. They want to have it in their own... Because they even talked about it. they even said it while Copa America was happening here. There was a thing where they're like, the real next tournament is going to be, and they announced it. Like, even while they were here, they didn't take this.
Well, I mean, having your confederations tournament in a different confederation doesn't make any sense to me, but they made a lot more money here than they would have elsewhere.
But that's all it was. It was a spectacle.
And, I mean, and I'm a homer, and we've discussed this, but I don't want to have a tournament in St. Kitts and Nevis.
But you're being extreme. There are other countries that could host this.
I am being a little binary and going to one extreme, but I mean, to me personally, the U.S. has the best stadiums, other than Mexico. But okay. So would you rather it switch off between Mexico and U.S. every year, or do you think it really should be in Jamaica and, do an island nations cup?
Absolutely. I even switching between U.S. and Mexico would be more fair. But I don't think that's the answer either. I think definitely, I just read something that they're thinking of co-hosting between 3 countries for the World Cup.
They're thinking about submitting the bid between U.S., Canada, and Mexico.
Was that the
what you
one?
read?
No.
Oh.
I don't know if it was those 3 countries. I just saw 3 countries possibility.
Well, I know the U.S. because, we really wanted the Qatar 2022 bid, and we lost that because of shenanigans.
Shenanigans, absolutely.
There's no way that tournament should ever be there, and actually they should just make it right and say, no, we're not going to put it there.
Right. I completely agree.
But, the U.S. wants a World Cup here, and on the next bid they were talking about co-hosting with Canada and Mexico.
I didn't know that. But if they're going to do that for a World Cup, I think that's a terrible idea, by the way. I think traveling between Canada and Mexico...
traveling the U.S., though, is almost the same to get from Florida to Portland.
Right.
I can get to Mexico a lot quicker than I can get to Portland.
That's also true. And, Russia is also a very big country, and they're hosting it. But it's a little bit different, I think, than having it in 3 different countries that are so far apart. It'd be different to me than having, Korea, Japan was, groundbreaking because they did it in 2 separate countries. But it worked. And what I'm saying is, if you want to say, we'll host it in
Jamaica.
Or, co-host Panama, Costa Rica. There's no reason why that wouldn't work. For a Gold Cup.
I understand, and I think Costa Rica, who has a league and who has teams, I think is fine. But I don't know where you draw the line there. Go back and look at the South African World Cup. They built multi-million dollar, multi-billion dollar stadiums that just rot now.
Yes.
They sit there and they rot.
Well, it was an absolute mistake to have it in South Africa.
But if we did this thing where it rotated between every country, and you said
it doesn't have to be every country.
We need to have it in Panama and El Salvador and St. Kitts and the Nevis.
I didn't say that either.
But where do you draw the line is what I'm saying.
Well, there has to be...
See, now you're picking 5 countries from the Confederation rather than all of them.
Well, that's still more fair. Zambia is never going to host a World Cup. Ever. Somalia is never going to host a World Cup.
Listen.
It's not the same.
30 years ago, somebody sat on this same couch and said...
Not the same couch.
Qatar will never host a World Cup.
It was very unlikely. But they at least have money.
Maybe they're going to find lots of oil in Zambia in the next 30 years. But what I'm saying is, I understand the equality argument. We all need to be equal. We all need to get a share.
I don't think we all need to be equal. I just think for the sake of the tournament being considered a real international tournament. Look.
Okay, so
hold on.
I disagree with this so hard because you want to make our confederation a confederation that the other confederations look at, right, and say that's a big tournament that we'd like to watch too. right?
No.
Like how we watch the Euros and we're like, wow, that's a big tournament. If our tournament was hosted in El Salvador and Panama, do you think the likes of France, Germany, Spain would care?
They don't care about it now.
Would they more likely care about it if it was in the U.S.?
No. No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't care about it any less or any more. It's nothing to do.
Lithuania hosted the Euros,
and we watch it because it's the Euros. It's different. We watch it because the competition is better, and I think the competition is made better because the same country doesn't host it every time. If you look at the last few, obviously we're the two best countries in the Confederation, and we're gonna probably win every single one from here on out for the rest of time. But specifically knowing that, shouldn't it be hosted somewhere else where we have a hostile environment? Mexico plays home games in the U.S. and the U.S. plays home games in the U.S.
But that's what I'm saying, though. The U.S. isn't a lot of the time. It's not even a home field advantage for the U.S. When we play in Southern California, it's a Mexico game.
When you play Mexico, not when you play Canada.
When we play Canada in...
No.
I'm trying to...
Seattle? No. Yeah, Canadians don't swarm the field and outnumber you guys. What I'm saying is, in order to make the competition not seem biased towards the big two, you co-host... I'm not saying El Salvador. Look, here's the thing.
I think 20 years down the line, if Canada has their own soccer league and they have nice stadiums and they can do it, soccer-specific stadiums, or just stadiums that could hold. And I know the U.S. You're going to say...
I was going to say the U.S. doesn't host them in soccer-specific stadiums.
But they will very soon once the MLS keeps getting more of these teams. Every year, another soccer-specific stadium.
But the championship's going to be in the Dallas Cowboys Stadium that holds 100,000.
I don't think it's going to be indoor. Dallas Stadium is an indoor stadium.
Mexico's played at the new Dallas Stadium, and they broke the record for most ticket sales at the stadium.
To me,
I think it's very simple.
I think it should switch off between us and Mexico, and I'm totally okay with that.
Even that to me is not right. But here's the thing. Look, Europa League, the UEFA has a certain limit. Your stadium has to hold X amount of people and have X amount of amenities to host either a Champions League or a Europa League game, which is why Tottenham has been playing at Wembley instead of White Hart Lane, because we're demolishing half the stadium right now. So what you say is, CONCACAF says your stadium has to hold at least 12,000 to host a Gold Cup game. And then you see what countries have those stadiums. You'd have, I think, Canada, U.S., Mexico, Costa Rica, Panama can host those games. And if it rotates between those five until other countries get their acts together, then so be it. But that is better than one or two countries. And you look at UEFA, they have those things too. You will never see
but that's the point I'm getting to. Is those countries? What you're once again looking at five, and I guess it's just where do we cut the number off of? Because I'm saying two, maybe three. You're saying five, but think of all the teams in CONCACAF that are just minnows, that don't have stadiums, that don't even have proper housing. Where do you? I'm being straightforward and I'm saying this is where I cut it off. You get to play this nice little fine line where I'm like, we should move it around, but we should move it around to these teams.
No, I think that's why I'm making the number so small, because I don't think it needs to be a huge stadium. I don't think the stadium needs to hold 50,000 to host the games. I think they should be smaller.
So we have teams like Trinidad and Tobago, Bermuda, Haiti, St. Kitts, Antigua. I've been to these countries on cruise ships.
Right.
They're as small as the city that we live in.
Right. I understand that, and that's what I'm saying. If those countries can't hold the people, then obviously, I'm not being ridiculous. I'm like, let's have Haiti host a Gold Cup, or Antigua, where the state of Florida has more people than the entire country. I'm not saying that. Obviously, there has to be some sort of criteria. But I think if we make the criteria, countries could host these games. More countries than host them now. And I think it would be more fair, for example, to Panama and Costa Rica, give them a better chance of winning if they're the home team.
So because you are trying to build up the Confederation to make it more talented, to make it more competitive.
Absolutely. Because Mexico and the U.S. were the best teams in the Confederation. When we go to Honduras and Costa Rica, we are not the favorites to win. We get beat by Costa Rica at home. At Costa Rica, because home field advantage means something in this Confederation. And
Costa Rica is a good team, though.
They're also a good team, and they have a great stadium with a great atmosphere.
They're 1A right now for one. You know, they're right there.
So that's what I'm saying. I think it would make the competition more legitimate, instead of saying, well, the U.S. hadn't lost a game on U.S. soil for how many years? You know what I mean?
I mean, that doesn't exist.
That's what I'm saying. Up until. But what I'm saying is,
yeah, I understand.
Just for these smaller countries to have a chance. Otherwise, it's going to be us two every single time. And as much as I love winning the Gold Cup, it means nothing to me, because it's going to be one of us two every single time.
To me, I would just rather play the likes of. I would rather host the Copa America here every summer, and play the likes of Argentina, until our players aren't scared to see Messi on the ball.
Well, he's not very good for his national team anyway.
So we're getting pretty far along here in the time. Shall we keep on rolling, or do you want to cut it?
I think we should probably wrap it up. We really got to stick to some sort of schedule.
Yeah, we just talk way too long sometimes. I think we need to get our Rowdies discussion in, but I think we could push it.
Yeah.
We'll start with the Rowdies next time. How about that?
We'll start with the Rowdies next time. I agree.
We'll give you a post-game reaction to them against Montreal this past weekend, where they won 2-1, and then we'll give you a preview of maybe the home opener, since we will be there.
That sounds like a great idea.
I think we could do that then.
Yeah.
So next week we'll look forward to that. We'll obviously talk about our Premier League again, and then I don't know, maybe we should talk about some CONCACAF Champions League maybe next week.
Yeah.
Fit that in there.
Oh, are they playing again, or?
I don't know when their next set of games are, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah. All right. So once again, thank you for listening. This has been Caleb
and Anthony,
and we are
the Rivals.